Okay,
Are
so,
we only doing public safety today?
yes. Wait, yes, still, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the other was canceled. So it is 4:05 and I call the Public Safety Committee to order on August 28th. Roll call, please.
Chair Collins.
Present.
Counselor Fitzgerald is excused. Counselor Schilling. Counselor Shane.
Here.
Counselor Barrientos.
Here.
And so I understand that we do have a quorum
We
to
have a
move
quorum.
forward. Excellent. So what I need, you two gentlemen, is to approve the minutes of our last Public Safety Committee meeting, which was June 26th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any conversation, discussion, anything we need to talk about with those old notes? Okay, so what the agenda says.
All in favor.
Oh, all in favor? I think I
Aye.
know by now. Aye. And it passes unanimously. So our next agenda is a fire chief selection process update. But I think what that really is supposed to mean, because we've already had that, I think what that really is supposed to mean is that every meeting we're going to be talking about our training plan.
So what we've done, so we made a little bit of changes to our agenda. So if anyone needs to describe those, I can share.
Okay.
So each meeting of the Public Safety Committee, we wanted to have an update from the city manager, an update from the fire department, and an update from the police department. And so we're happy to talk about, under my update, was the fire chief selection process update. So because when we put this agenda together, we were still, the jury was out on who we were going to hire, stuff like that. So it's fine. So we can simply check that off as we know who our new fire chief is. She's sitting right over there, April Wallace. Then the public safety facility update will include the training facilities at the fire department,
Wow.
as well as the progress we're making on any other public safety facility upgrades, like purchasing a building for the police department. And I can give a little bit of update on that. The fire department update will include then the item, the community risk reduction plan. The police update will include the Crazy Days report and the chief's advisory panel. So we're just going to kind of those three broad categories: an update from me, an update from the fire chief, an update from the police chief.
Excellent.
And then any reports under there.
Does that work for you guys? I know Michael's not, we don't have everybody here. Does that work? Are there things that we might be missing if this is our regular?
I don't think so.
Don't know what it would be.
Yeah, if there's any special requests that are referred to this committee, we'll have them fit under either my update, the police update, or the fire update. All right. So if it's okay, Chair Collins, what I'll do is I will start on my second topic, which is the public safety facility update. All right. So as the councilors here are well aware, the City Council recently authorized a move of American Rescue Plan Act funds from the fire training facility to the purchase of the fire engine. So we're very excited to have that be underway. We have signed the contract for the purchase of that vehicle, and that's probably beginning the manufacturing process of getting that done. So because we moved those funds from the training facility over to the engine, the plan for now is to not build a fire training facility as we had envisioned and talked about when we were discussing ARPA funds. However, we do want to take any leftover funding from the purchase of the engine and upgrade our current training grounds, which are just to the south of the current fire station. Might put some additional gravel down, some fencing around the perimeter of that, buy maybe a few little training tools and equipment. That's the kind of things that we're looking at with any remaining balance after the engine's purchased. Again, we put $1 million towards the purchase of that vehicle. We're coming in a little bit north of $800,000. So $150,000 after it's all said and done is what we think we'll have to put towards the current training facility and buying props and other things like that.
Is there anything we can do to bolster that, like grants or anything?
Yes, and that's something that we're currently working through. With the fire department and all of our departments, actually. The Council of Governments, which is our regional kind of governing organization that all the cities and counties participate as part of, they have 2 grant writers on staff, and we can work with them to help find and acquire grants through their grant writing services and administration. So we'll be working with them on projects like that. So yes, we can certainly look for grant opportunities for training facility upgrades, prop purchases, stuff like that, and use the funding from the ARPA funding as match for those grants. Any questions on training facility?
Not on the facility.
So let me talk a little bit about the acquisition of the property for the police department. We have had some initial conversations with a property owner of a building. Not ready to disclose any details on that yet, but Charlie Mitchell and myself are going to be meeting with the responsible person for that property. I think at least in the next week of the 11th of September, so a couple weeks away. There is interest on their part to sell, and so it's just a matter of getting together and discussing, some characteristics of the building, maybe some concerns we have, doing some site visits, and then hopefully getting on a price that we can come to an agreement on. So moving forward towards that, the purchase of the building would then require future renovations to outfit it for the purpose of a police station, but it's a really good first step.
So if that goes forward, that will replace the current police station, that the space they now occupy will be available for something else? Or is it in addition to rather than instead?
It's probably in addition to.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about, being as we're currently in a little financial crunch over the next 5 years, where does that money come from, and how is it that we can afford to purchase a building even though we've got a money crunch?
Yeah, so again, the purchase of that building would be purchased through the American Rescue Plan Act funds that we still have available to us. And so we're looking to hopefully purchase the building, with remaining funds that we have available that are uncommitted in the American Rescue Act Plan funds that the city has received. And so it wouldn't impact, our general fund or any of the other areas where we've been communicating with the community about the need to keep those, having a shortfall in those funds. And so this would be a capital purchase out of American Rescue Plan Act dollars, which again are one-time funds. This purchase of a building is a great candidate for a one-time revenue purchase, and so that's what we're targeting.
I think what I got from what you just said is that the ARPA funds, granted that this is very early, there's a lot we don't know. Based on what you know now, what I think you just said is that the ARPA funds should be expected to cover 100% of the purchase price.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think it was in 2007, I had a graduate level class at Western Oregon University, and the whole class was about building a police station. Specifically, it was about building the police station for the Independence Police Department. So the graduate level class, all the students, there were about 12 of them, got together. They did historical background. They did the square footage. They talked to the police chief, talked to officers, and they came up, we all came up with a dynamic plan on how to put forth a brand new police station. And within probably about 3 to 4 years after that, Independence Police had a brand new police station. So my question is, can we work with Western Oregon University with their graduate degree program in criminal justice and see if we can collaborate with them in building this new police station, or at least kind of have them do the grunt work that they can present to the city council?
Do you still have all your notes and information from the class?
I do.
Yeah, I think there's opportunities to look for, partnerships in that way. We've been working with a consultant, McKinsey, on some designs of police and fire facilities. And so I think we have opportunities there, opportunities with, educational institutions that might be able to provide some insight, or certainly things that we should explore.
Was that free?
The added benefit is that this will be completely free.
Right. Yeah, we'll look into it.
That's awesome. Also bring those notes.
So that's all for my updates.
Okay, any other questions of the city staff? Well, I guess they're all city
Just-
staff.
just
of
for me,
Bryan,
yeah.
I'm gonna say no. All right, so let's move right along. Who's up next? So now we have, our new Chief Wallace for a fire department update. How long do I get to keep calling you new Chief Wallace?
Congratulations, by the way. One of us escaped the other night before I could shake your hand, so congratulations.
Thank you. Did I do check 1, 2? Can you hear me? Okay. So my update is on our community risk reduction grant that we wrote for a smoke alarm program. It's a FEMA grant, and FEMA grants take a really long time. I just checked the update on the status of that, and it says still pending review. They usually months, unfortunately.
And can you remind us the purpose of these smoke alarms?
Yeah, the purpose of that is the target area that we were looking at is going to be a more established area in Dallas, where we have homes that were built before smoke alarms were even required to be in them, as well as a higher population of maybe older people who may not prioritize smoke alarms. So the point of that program was to target those residents first, see how that program works, and then potentially piggyback with another organization like the Red Cross, or even put in a line item into our budget. We do have a prevention line item. And
So
look at
this will be kind of like a
continuing that.
pilot project.
Yes.
So our previous chief had explained that this program was less than, it wasn't going to be a priority. So can you talk a little bit about why we're putting it back as a priority?
Well, this is gonna sound kind of corny, but working smoke alarms save lives, right? Again, we're dealing with some potentially aging population folks who just may not prioritize fire safety, correct? Cooking fires happen a lot with older folks. Really anybody in general, to be honest with you. Candles, accidental fires, discarded smoky materials, that kind of thing. I really find a lot of value in getting people the equipment that they need to be able to be safe in their home. And we've had lots of house fires lately, so.
If you get the grant that you're applying for, about how many households do you think you could deal with?
I'm not sure at this
Ballpark.
point. We're thinking probably around 50.
So it would be a small pilot project.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure that it was a manageable size, especially with the cost of smoke alarms. I don't know what they're going to be if we do get approved for the grant. So that might be a factor in how many homes we target. Typically, you have a smoke alarm in each sleeping bedroom, outside the bedroom, and then somewhere in the residence. So it just depends on how many smoke alarms we'd be installing. And we would do a pre-survey before we would even go out. We would talk to folks to see if they're actually willing to do this program, because it's voluntary. And then also there's going to be an education component that goes along with us visiting with these people and establishing an area to focus on.
I'm sure you're not like 100% all in on just the smoke alarm. So what else have you considered? You know, say if the smoke alarms didn't really, I mean, you didn't need 14,000 on smoke alarms. What else were you thinking?
Well, that grant, I wrote it specifically for smoke alarms.
Okay.
And it's a fire prevention and safety grant through FEMA. And you have to have a target of what you have to be very specific on what you're going to be using this money for. But to follow up with that, as far as additional education, we would be talking about slips, trips, falls, more some prevention maybe looking at if people wanted us to help them with an escape plan, that kind of thing in their residence. But that grant was specifically written for smoke alarms.
I'd love to see the pub ed piece of that around smoke alarms for the families who have a smoke alarm, right? I have one in my living room. I must be good to hear exactly what you just said. Like best practice looks a little bit different, and you know, check them twice a year at least, and those kinds of pieces of pub ed.
Right.
Be
Well,
great.
the smoke alarms that we would be purchasing have the 10-year lithium battery, which is just better than,
I mean,
just
for families
regular.
who aren't receiving, like
Sure.
for general community ed,
Okay,
when,
sure.
you know, they've purchased the Walmart version that needs 2 AA's, check those.
Mm,
Though
right.
that level of pub ed for general pub ed. And you guys are pretty fantastic about, or I don't, if you do the pub ed or if we have a different person who does it.
No, we
Okay.
do that in-house.
That's
One of our captains actually helps out with the social media and the press releases when it comes to that kind of thing. In October is Fire Prevention Month, so we'll hit that pretty hard come October, especially when the time change, you know, that's kind of ingrained in everybody. Check your smoke alarms when you change your clock.
Mhm.
So.
Since you brought up your public information officer, I do want to say I recently had an opportunity to see a post, a social media post from a different department where there were 8-10 fire personnel standing in front of a completely burnt down building, smiling. And that's never any, right? That's somebody's life that just burnt to the ground. And I never see something like that from you guys. It is always respectful. And when I see happy, smiling firefighters, it's because they're doing something that's happy, and, you know, out in the community. And so whoever is doing that work, huzzah, they've done a fabulous job. And it was just this huge juxtaposition over the last couple of weeks when I saw that other piece of all these smiling firefighters in front of somebody's houses. It was a barn, but still, it's their stuff had gone. And so good job.
We do a lot of education to our folks about that kind of thing, especially when we're on scene, the conversations that are even had on scene, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, because, you know, we're there doing our job, but then people have lost their property and their home or their barn, or we're very careful about that, just because I agree with you. I think it's in bad taste. I think it's terrible. If you do see us smiling outside of a burned down building, it's probably going to be a burn to learn, and
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
and we'll be very specific
Right.
about why we're smiling outside of a burned
Yeah,
down
so
house.
pass along the kudos because it's been very good.
Thank you.
So the 14,000, does it come in installments, 7,000 and
No.
7,000?
No, it is 14,000, and I
So-
believe this one is a no match grant.
And then you have up to 2 years to use it.
Correct.
Before you go, I would like an update. One of the things that I think is really important is to make sure that our community understands that when we initially allotted money for a training facility to be used in conjunction with other municipalities, we changed our focus and redirected that funding to this very necessary apparatus, but that we haven't forgotten about the need for training and the plans for training. And so Brian gave us a good update on that, like updating the lot. But I know that you have other training plans, and I just saw that you sent some people up to St. Helens?
Yep.
Yeah. So can you just talk every time, can you talk a little bit about what are you doing to make sure that our paid and volunteers, that their necessary training is continuing on the same path that it needs to, even though we've diverted the money to this really necessary apparatus?
Sure. So we sent 4 firefighters up to St. Helens for the weekend. There was a training day on Friday and a training day on Saturday. Basically, it's just to learn fire tactics with fire hose and that kind of thing, just to kind of make it simple. We've also partnered with DPSST. We've sent a number of firefighters, career and volunteer, to DPSST to use their burn trailer. We had actually a really good turnout for that. We've been in the works with Polk One to utilize their training tower. So when the weather is not quite so hot, I don't really like to have them out there when it's that hot doing that kind of work. But they'll be working with Polk One and their training facility with hose advancement and company operations, that kind of thing. And when I say that, it's basically the initial arrival of the fire engine, what they do when they very first get there. We train every Wednesday. We're also adding an additional weekend drill for our volunteers that can't make it on that Wednesday night drill. We've pretty much opened it up to anybody, any of our volunteers that want to come down and drill with, train with our paid staff. That's, you know, one of their focuses is to make sure that they're also keeping up on their training during the week too. So we do have set times on Wednesday and then on Saturdays as well. We've also incorporated our mutual aid partner, Southwest Polk, in at least one of our drill nights during the month. Have found some deficiencies with, I guess, consistency in how we operate. And we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so we've invited them to come to drill where we've pulled hose lines, we've taken fire hydrants, we've, know where the equipment is on everybody's piece of equipment, right? Their fire engines. Deputy Chief Rogers and EMS Chief Kim Storms have started teaching like train the trainer classes, and we've opened that up to our other mutual aid partners around us to have them come in so they can become instructors too.
Awesome.
And that's with the thought that we could hold regional trainings at any of our facilities. So, and then the last thing is we have in October, we'll be starting a recruit academy for our volunteers, and we have 5 that have currently committed. And we want to make sure that that 5 may not sound like a big number, but we need to have a manageable size. And not only that, but when you think about the fact that we have to outfit them too at $3,000 pop.
And can you remind us how many hours annually a volunteer needs for training, minimal?
Well, volunteer and career, there's no difference in how we train. And it's every 2 years, and I believe it's 120 hours.
Okay.
So we train our volunteers to the same exact level of our career staff.
And do you send people to National Academy?
We do.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and the lack of cost there?
Yeah, a lot of times National Fire Academy will offer courses at DPSST, which is nice because it's local, it's free. But we do have several volunteers and some paid staff that have taken trips back to the National Fire Academy. They do have to make an application. They offer all kinds of courses. My deputy chief is going to be going in October for a leadership class. And then we had Nicole Schmidt, one of our firefighter EMTs, went back last year for kind of like that initial supervisory type course. And that was, I think she was there for a week.
And then that's paid for by the feds.
Correct.
Including their travel.
Yes.
And including making sure that their time is paid for.
I believe so.
So when we send someone to National Academy, whether it's local or Senevac, doesn't matter, the class is not only free, but also it's kind of a zero budget impact.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's important, so that when people hear like, oh, I'm getting to go back to, what is it, Maryland, DC?
Emmitsburg, Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland. That it's not like a fun vacation. It is.
No, and it's work, right? They're
Yeah.
actually on a campus, and there's rules to that campus. I know that there are fire organizations that have been uninvited to attend classes. And the other thing too is if you display unfavorable behavior, you pretty much have ended any time that you get at the National Fire Academy ever again.
And that's never happened to Dallas.
No.
Good. I'm there. I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're continuing to make sure that our firefighters are getting the training they need, even though we didn't get a pretty new facility, because we really need this apparatus. So
Yeah,
we're doing
and-
both.
Correct. And my focus was, as far as redirecting the money, is that the cost of building material is very expensive. And I was a little concerned at the fact that if we did put $1 million into this property, what's the cost going to be at the end? So we have an area of land to train at, but then nothing to train with.
This
So
agency historically has always placed very heavy emphasis on training.
Mhm.
That's part of the culture of the department, and it has not changed.
Yeah,
and this leads me into an offer for city council is I would encourage you to come do a ride along with us. I know that there's been ride alongs with the police department, but we would love to have you come do a ride along with us, either in the ambulance or in the fire engine or both. I would encourage you to come visit Wednesday night when we're drilling, just so you can get an idea of what that looks like and how hard they truly do work.
and thank you for paying attention to the weather during training so that we're not ending up with anybody with heat stroke or heat exhaustion.
We're very careful about that. They do train very hard. When you think about their gear, it keeps everything in. They'll do an evolution and then they're taken out and they are rehabbed, basically take their coat off, drink water, that kind of thing. Yeah, the last thing we want is for somebody to have an issue that could have been prevented.
And that's not the same across all fire. That's not the same.
One of the things they do at their annual banquet is hand out awards for people who've gone over and above in terms of the number of hours of training that they've done. So it may be an overstatement to say that it's competitive, but it's training has a very, very high visibility,
Yeah,
high profile here.
Definitely.
and congrats on the 5 newbies. Did
Thank
you have
you.
anything else to add?
Oh, got it.
All right, thank you.
All right, Chief Simpson.
Got just a couple of items just gonna touch bases on real quick, and then just a little bit of a general update on what's been going on in the department. First is Crazy Days. I'm sure you guys read the report. Just highlight, we have one of our sergeants taking care of the security for the event. Fire department was gracious enough to have the water ball program over there, and that went well. Fire staffed the booth along with us during the term of the event. We had the parade where we led Saturday morning with the sheriff. That went well. Fire department helped out a lot with the breakfast in the park, getting it set up and getting it cleaned up. And then Emily and I worked on the logistics side of the program to try to bring everything together on our piece. So that went well, and we had a good turnout. We'll have an after action here coming up soon and see what we can do to make things better next year. So
Do we have any idea how many people attended this weekend or that weekend?
not really.
Not yet.
It's hard to estimate with people moving around as much as they do. It's a guess, and I hate to speculate, and then people start.
Do we count, sorry,
Hmm?
I just had a thought. Do we count people who came from far away to Crazy Days? Does that count toward our visitors?
Yeah, so we do utilize transient lodging tax dollars for the marketing of this event, specifically because of where we market. We have billboards out on I-5 that are intended to attract people that are driving, between Portland down to Eugene, again, 50 miles away or greater. So there is some funding of transient lodging tax dollars that are used towards the event. We don't fund the whole event with those dollars because we understand that a lot of the event is for people in our community. But the marketing aspect in particular,
Okay, good.
we do use those dollars for that purpose.
Yay. And from a public safety standpoint, was it relatively uneventful?
It was good. I think we took one gentleman to jail that had a little too much to drink on the first night, and we helped somebody get home the second night. So it was really, really, everyone was well behaved. And with the amount of alcohol, and even last year with the heat and the alcohol, there's a potential for a problem there, but everything went well.
Since you brought up the TLT, I've always wondered, do those funds go, 70%'s got to be spent on attracting visitors, but and the other 30 we can do with as we please. Does that money go through the general fund? Is that where it's used? Or is it accounted for some other way?
Yeah, so it's budgeted out of the general fund.
Okay.
So we receive that revenue in as TLT dollars, so the revenue that comes in, so we're able to track how much money we have. And then
So
on the
that 30% is just in the general fund, it can be used wherever we use the
Right.
general fund, okay?
Right. Yeah, and just from the number standpoint, I agree with Tom. We don't make efforts to try to count everyone that's there just because of the scope and size of the event over the 3 days, 4 days with Sunday. But I would say that all the vendors were very happy
Yes.
at the end of it. So I think everyone that was here doing business did very well, and we didn't receive any complaints on how much they sold or how busy they were. So that was I think a good sign.
And it was relatively uneventful. Also a good sign.
Yes.
Yes. As far as the Chiefs Advisory Panel, I don't really have much of an update this time. The second in our next meeting is scheduled a week from this Wednesday. So we'll get the group together, and the next time around we'll have another report just to kind of update on how that's going. As far as some status stuff on the department, Heather Taylor, our new Administrative Services Manager that took Tammy Welty's place, she started at the end of June, and she's been doing a fantastic job.
Good.
We've moved our part-time records clerk, Shelley Bridges, we've moved her into the position that Heather was in as a full-time records specialist. So now we're recruiting for a part-time clerk at 20 hours. If you know someone that's interested, please have them apply. We've got a few names that we're looking at right now, and Emily's continuing to have it posted. And once we get a good number of names, then we'll run through some applications and see where we go with that. So I have 3 officer vacancies right now. I have a chief's interview scheduled this Thursday for 1. We'll see how that goes. So hopefully we'll get another candidate there that's working well.
Is the chief's interview the last step before making an offer?
No. It used to be, and we had to change around because of the way the legislature set things up as far as looking at personnel rules. So what we do now is after the chief's interview, we'll do the background investigation. Once the background investigation is cleared, then we'll give them a conditional offer, and we'll move forward with the medical, physical, and the psych. Now the legislature requires the personnel file to have been looked at before any conditional offer is given. So we can't do that conditional offer until we
Looked at by whom?
I'm sorry?
Looked at by whom?
By a background investigator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Got 3 recruits in the academy still. 2 of them are scheduled to graduate in early September, and then 1 of them in October. So we're looking forward to getting them back, and so far they're doing well. We have our newest vehicle, the 23 Durango, sitting at the shops waiting for parts so we can get it upfitted. We've had quite a bit of delay in the equipment. We're hoping to have it built before the end of this year. We may have some movement in October, we'll see. So we'll see where that goes. In the very near future, we're waiting for Monmouth PD to get their radios in place. We're going to be joining all the other agencies in the county and switching over to all digital radios for both our portables and our mobiles. That part was funded through our capital projects plan. So we're in position, our radios are in Salem being programmed, and we're just waiting for Monmouth to get theirs in. And once everybody's ready, we'll do a coordinated switch over with Polk County, who owns the infrastructure of the radio system.
Well, that's true. You all have to be using the same kind, don't you, or you can't talk to each other?
That's it.
Yeah.
Jim Welch is the retired Salem officer that we hired here in July. He's our new school resource officer now. Jim got about 30 years of police work under his belt. He was a sergeant for Salem, I believe, for about 10 years, and spent some time also as a SRO in the middle school over there. So he's going to be a good fit in the SRO program, and we're looking forward to him getting going. And we are continuing. I'm sorry you guys keep seeing the updates that says we don't have analytics right now. We're continuing to work with dispatch on that. They told us they would have the capability to do analytics mid-August. We're past that, and they still have not. There's a meeting coming up next week to try to get some of that resolved, and I think they're starting some training now to where they're going to be able to do this. But it's not just a problem with us. A lot of folks are having issues.
Yeah.
with
Can
it.
you talk about dispatch is not Dallas?
I'm sorry?
Is dispatch Dallas employees for Dallas?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
can
talking
you talk
about
that?
the Willamette Valley Communications Center, which is a consortium of about 29 different agencies, both police, fire, and EMS that they dispatch for. So it's a large consortium. We did a CAD transition to a new system this year, and it's just, I think the switchover was May 17th, I believe, and it's been, there's always these growing pains when you switch to a new system, but the daily log information and the analytics that we were used to doing quite regularly is just not available to us now, and it's frustrated a lot of people. They promise us we're gonna get there.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
There you go.
I just wanted to be clear that this isn't Dallas doesn't have the,
No.
this is
it's-
a
it's
consortium
just-
that gives us the information based on the calls that come in.
Well, they started out saying that Tyler CAD, that this new vendor, they didn't want to provide this report capability until they had all new data in to work with. And their timeframes have just been moving around, so we'll get there. There's a lot of agencies pushing for it and a lot of folks that are frustrated, so they're getting enough heat. It'll happen. I'm just not sure how quick. So,
And that's right, Councilor Collins, it is a consortium, as the chief explained.
It's not on you.
if it were, I'd be done by now because I'm as frustrated as any of them. Yeah. That's all that I have just for an overview. If there's any questions I can answer for you, I'd be happy to.
Questions?
Yeah, just this year, there's been a high influx on many of the cities and towns within Oregon, crime related, maybe vagrancy related, all kinds of stuff like that. Can you share with us if you've noticed any trends, any spikes, anything that is a anomaly within the police department or contact with people?
I don't have the data right now to look and tell you over the past several months, but up through May, I can tell you that our crime rate is actually pretty good in Dallas, and it compares very favorably to previous years because we looked at those month by month.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but our, almost all the time, our crime rate compares favorably to everybody around us.
Most of the time. There's times when you have a little bit of a spike, but as a rule, the trend is pretty good. And our clearance rates especially are almost always better than the state average. But what we're seeing most often, the increase or the spike, if you will, is response to mental health calls. There's just such a demand and there's no resources for it. So when folks aren't sure who to call, they call the cops, and we try to deal with these people. And unfortunately, people are just in a bad situation, and oftentimes it's the same people, several times a week. One time I looked and we had 32 different calls on mental health for 1 week, and they're very time consuming, and they take a lot of time to sort out what to do, how to get it resolved, getting other agencies involved, finding these folks the right resources, or getting them home, and then the paperwork that follows it. It's just a huge amount of time.
And in the worst case scenario, they can go south very, very quickly.
It can. They really can.
Doesn't happen very often.
Where, we're getting calls about people that are homeless, and oftentimes it's just from people that don't understand what's going on, or they think that if they're in the park, we can make them leave the park, and we cannot. So if they're in a city park after hours, we can enforce those existing rules, but as you well know, we can't tell them it's wrong to camp there in the daytime because they can do that. But really, I would say, if I had to pick one thing, I would say mental health calls is our biggest demand. Dallas is a fairly safe community, and I believe the survey reflects that most community members feel safe here. But I think you ask any one of my officers, what's your most demand on your time, they will probably tell you dealing with people with behavioral health issues. Because if it was one person, you deal with them, you never deal with them again, it probably wouldn't be as bad, but a lot of it's repetitive. And we're seeing more folks coming in here from outside the area that tell us they have no connection to Dallas whatsoever. Some of the homeless also have mental health challenges. Sometimes that's why they're homeless, not necessarily always. But we have had some tell us specifically they come to Dallas not because they have any connection here, other than they don't feel safe living on the street in Salem because they get robbed, they get beat up. In Dallas, they feel more safe, and that's the types of things that we hear. So very, very few of our homeless are true Dallas residents. We pretty much know them. We've known them for a while, and honestly, they give us very little, don't really cause much trouble, and it's those that aren't from here that do.
That's good. And I mean, I know it's anecdotal, but that's good for us to hear.
Anything else?
I don't think so. No? All right. So, thank you. We can adjourn if there's nothing else.
That's right.
You finished your business.
All right, we finished business at 4:45 PM.